awesome. Really such an interesting thing. You know, you make a body of work in your little cave for 6 months and emerge into the light of day one spring morning and go, I hope this is of some value to somebody. So it's always kind of a daunting thing when you bring it all out and put it on the wall and, you know, wonder if you just masturbated in a room for 6 months and nobody cares, right? It's all for me. And it gets out there, and it's great when people come out and it's actually like, oh, okay, what you're doing does have some value, so thank you. This whole body of work, it's interesting how it came about. It's kind of like, I often sometimes will refer to making art like going for a walk in a forest without any destination. You just kind of start walking and exploring and looking, and you'll take a little path and it'll reach a dead end and you'll turn. And there's nowhere to be other than where you are. When I started making this work, it was kind of the beginning of this big upheaval that we've all undergone over the last little while. In 1869, there's a Japanese woodblock artist named Hokusai, and he made this wave. It's called the Great Wave at Kanagawa. It's from a series of I think it was 52 prints that were views of Mount Fuji. This wave curls, it's beautiful. You guys have all seen it. It's on t-shirts, on coffee mugs. It's the quintessential Japanese wave. That wave is much more than just a picture of a wave. It was a time in history where Japan was kind of hanging on to a past that had long left them. The emperor still believed it was valuable. The samurai were becoming police officers. We were still crafting vessels in the fields. It was like they did not want to move into a modern world that they didn't understand. Across the water, Europe was forging ahead with an industrial revolution. Trains were moving, and this artist, Hokusai, knew this was happening, and he saw the fragility of hanging on to a past that was gone. The big wave curls, and we kind of admire its beauty, and not many people see it, but lost within it is a little wooden fishing boat that is about to be tossed upside down and smashed to bits. That fishing boat is our idea of what we are. It was Japan's idea of what they are. It was about to change dramatically. This image had been in my mind, and I love it. The BBC had called it one of the top 100 objects to represent the history of the world. Because it was about change. It was about the constant state of flux that we're in all the time. Nothing is ever the same. This wave was kind of in my mind, and I walked into the studio watching kind of schools close and this is shutting down. It's like, wow, it's like, you know, just kind of being in it all. And I walked in the studio and I picked up some blue chalk, and there's a distinction here between choosing and deciding. Deciding is kind of making a decision is based on exterior influences. You know, what's the right thing to do? Is that going to affect that? Is that going to be about that? All these other things cause us to make a decision. A choice is just free of that. It's just of itself. I just picked it up and I started drawing with blue. I didn't know what was up, but there was a sense of being pulled out of the world we knew, being ripped from this kind of comfortable space, this bubble. And from my mind, I immediately start to look for reference points in history and culture, and I try to see where there's a sameness. Michelangelo, who was probably one of the first artists I saw that like really kind of like, wow, like that's what it can be. The ceiling of like prophets and angels rising up, and it was just like, wow, like we can make stuff like that. I looked at a book of his drawings, and in it was these figures that were being pulled from the ground. They were being pulled apart by these vicious kind of raptors, these birds of prey. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I started to draw these images, just to draw, just to move the arm, to, you know, get that muscle flowing. And I started to think about the rapture, because that's what it was all about, being pulled out of our comfort, being thrust into this kind of space that we didn't understand. And, you know, from a Christian Catholic tradition, if we give in to the rapture, we are lifted into a heavenly kind of space where we achieve an awakening. The rapture is derivative of a Greek root, raptus, which means to be taken by force. This is where the bird of prey, the raptor, this is where rape comes from. This is where all of these experiences of being ripped out of our world, pulled apart, and then it's what we do with it, what we do in that space. I make these drawings, the great wave of hookicized, twisting, our world's kind of being flipped upside down. And I'm thinking of water at the same time. I'm starting to like these waves, I start painting some water, these images of constant flux, and yet the sameness. If any of us have stood over a creek or gazed at the ocean, this thing is constantly moving and shifting, and yet it's always the same. It's just such a beautiful kind of moment and place to be, in that you're in absolute change and you're at a state that never changes. It's really so wild to me, you know, that I have children growing up and I watch them and I see them doing the things that I did that seemed like a moment ago I did that. That water is moving, it's different, and yet it's the same. It's millennia of humans have done these things. We've lived through pandemics, we've lived through suffering and wars, and we emerge again, not unlike a rapture. So I'm looking at these waves, I'm looking at water, start painting these waves. It's starting to emerge for me is blue. Where's all this blue coming from? So I quickly open a book by Vasily Kandinsky called Concerning the Spiritual in Art. Kandinsky was looking at color and how it works with our psyche, how the viewing color, how it affects us. And he put blue at the highest level. He says it's the harmonic vibration of blue. It's the color that can open us up, can lift us, and you gaze up, and the sky is blue. The water that opens is blue. The Virgin Mary's bathed in blue. The Buddha is blue. Krishna's blue. It's like, of course they're all blue. Why wouldn't they be blue? Why didn't I pick up blue? So I'm connecting these dots and I say, okay, my walk has started, and I keep following it. But as I'm following it, I have this kind of innate urge to question everything, to poke holes in all of it. Because it's all an illusion. None of it is real. It's all made up. Our idea of what it is. COVID is simply a thing. We make it, oh, you took away this from me, you made me do this, now I have to do this. None of that occurred. We made all that up. It just happened. Tabitha, my wife, and I have been in a book club during this for some maddening reason. Reading the works of Heidegger, who, if any of you know, Heidegger is a cruel philosopher that presents you with these kind of puzzles to try and understand what it is to be. He wrote a book called Seeing Being. And his whole pursuit was trying to understand what it is to be a human being. Being is the operative term here. This is what interests me. Like, what is it? Why are we a human being rather than not? So we're reading this work, and he starts to posit this idea that all of our reality exists in language. Everything is born out of language. The ancient Gnostics were a pre-Christian kind of spiritual tradition that created this cosmology. It's really beautiful, and I explore it a lot in my thinking, and they had an idea that there was an absolute, a thing. Kind of, you imagine the universe prior to the Big Bang. Just a whole, a thing. It sought to know itself. It asked a question. In doing that, we immediately set up a relationship. When a child is born, it leaves the mother, and there's an immediate I, you, me, food, me, sky, me, water, me, blah, 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 off the fall from grace begins. That we separate from it. The ancient Gnostics believed that this absolute sought to know itself. It asked the question. In doing so, it split into duality. There was a male and a female energy. The male became the dog-kicking, lightning bolt-throwing, mean god of the Old Testament, and the female became Sophia, or wisdom. Wisdom and all of her life-giving properties gave birth to 1 billion points of light that all sprinkled onto the earth. And that became us. And our job was to get back to the whole, to reconnect with this thing that was beyond opposites. Heidegger said that all begins in language. The ancient Gnostics said that that first break began in language, in that question, the logos, which is the name of this piece here. The idea of a vessel is really interesting to me. In the Judeo-Kabbalistic tradition, the mystical kind of element of Judaism, there's this similar diagram which is derived from the Gnostics of this series of vessels. And there's a piece around the corner here called The Breaking of the Vessels. The Breaking of the Vessels is about these vessels were the kind of containers for God's love. And it was so big that the containers couldn't handle it and they broke. The vessels broke. And we had to reconnect to them. We had to climb back up. It's the same Gnostic tradition. So I'm kind of like, there's water smashing, there's blue bathing me, and there's vessels, and it's all like, I can see it all. This is where we're undergoing right now. There's big change, there's upheaval, and it means nothing. It's just what it is. It's just a wave crashing. The resistance is where the problem occurs. Heidegger says that problems only exist in language. I made the analogy last night, and I'm going to use it again, is that you run out of gas. And we're like, like that guy started yapping to me, I didn't have time to go to the gas station, and now I don't have enough gas, and I'm going to be late. It's all made up. It's all made up in language, and that something should be other than it is. The tank simply doesn't have gas in it anymore. That's all that existed. We make it mean all these things, and it's not true. The wave comes and the wave falls. It means nothing. It's just doing as the wave does. We add all the meaning to it. So all of this, for me, has been about poking a hole in that meaning. What is it? And I rip apart the canvas, I peel back the layers. I've had some amazing experiences of late. Digging deep into my psyche and kind of poking holes in who I am, trying to understand it. And there's been this kind of onion skin metaphor that's kept revealing itself. And an onion skin is really interesting because it's all layers. There is no center. There's nothing there. It's emptiness. You peel them away and you peel them away and you peel them, and there's no thing. This is a beautiful Zen Buddhist teaching of no thing, or mu. The vessels are the empty vessels of no thing, of nothing. The Zen teaching of emptying our cup is always there for me. That's why I make these vessels, that's why I painted them. That's how I can get more wine. If I empty this cup, they'll give me more. To take in something new, we have to empty what we know. We have to let go. Constantly let go of things. As a painter, I'm always like, okay, I can paint a bird. I can paint a tree. It holds me back. I have to let go of it. I have to constantly let go of what it is to be. What it is to be in this, to get up here and talk. I'm like, I've already said this several times. I have to let go of what I said and start anew. And then my cup can be filled up again. So all these works are about poking holes in it, letting go of it, freeing ourselves from it. In a time of great change, that is really always great change. Nothing's different. This time we call it COVID, next time we'll call it 9/11, the next time we'll call it winter. It's constantly changing. It's what we do with it. Just be with it. Surfers have been an endless metaphor for me because the water constantly moves. It's the one thing we do on this planet where we're literally moving. The water comes and we've watched people on the beach wander out in their water wings and try to face a wave, and it smashes them and throws them onto the beach. And when I was a kid, I pulled a man out of the water in Hawaii. We were there with my parents, and this guy's back. It was actually with Wayne. This guy, we were playing, and we watched this guy think he was bigger than the wave, and it beat him up. And this guy was going under, and me and this other teenager were like, uh-oh, we better save that guy. And we dragged this guy out. And it was like, that resistance was his problem. He didn't join the wave, he resisted it. He thought he was bigger than it. Resistance is futile. Surfers join the wave, they join it, and they have a spiritual journey. Talk to any surfer, it's spiritual. It's not just hanging out in the water. They're like in the flow, like you're with it. And that's what it's all about, right? We're in this flow, and it's like, join it. So I made this work as an attempt to kind of understand all of this. There's a piece over there I'm just glancing at. Everything is gold, and I cannot describe the gold. It's all gold. It's beautiful. Every part of it. The up, the down, the rise and the fall. Just like be in it, bask in it, you know. And it's that's all that this work was about. It was a time of perceived upheaval, and I kind of stepped into it, and I joined the wave, and it's fruitful, it's beautiful. I'm standing here with all your lovely faces, and it seems pretty good. So that's what the work's about, and this is where my internal ego says, stop talking, and you're going on long enough. They got it. So thank you. Yeah, and if there's any questions.